In the beginning, there was water, vast warm oceans that stretched beyond every horizon, unmarked by the continents we know today. 540 million years ago, in these primordial seas of Earth's Cambrian period, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Life was preparing to write one of its most enduring chapters, a story of creatures so perfectly designed that they would outlast the dinosaurs, survive ice ages, and continue thriving in oceans we're only beginning to understand. Before we continue this journey, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary for you. Picture, if you will, these ancient waters. No fish swam here yet, no whales sang in the depths. The ocean floor was carpeted not with familiar seaweeds, but with strange, primitive life forms experimenting with existence itself. And it was here, in this alien seascape, that the first Cnidarians began to bloom like living flowers in an underwater garden that spanned the globe. These were not the chaotic experiments of early evolution. These creatures emerged with something remarkable, a body plan so fundamentally sound, so elegantly simple, that it would prove more durable than the most complex designs nature had yet attempted. While 99% of all species that have ever lived have vanished into extinction's embrace, Cnidarians discovered something profound about survival. They found the secret hidden in simplicity itself. Consider the genius of their design. 2 layers of cells, that's all. An outer layer to face the world, an inner layer to process what the world provides, and between them, a jelly-like substance that gives them form without rigidity. At their center, a single cavity serves as both mouth and stomach, a marvel of efficiency that eliminates waste and maximizes function. This radial symmetry, spreading outward from a central point like ripples on a pond, would become nature's most enduring architectural masterpiece. The moon jellies were among the first to perfect this art of liquid existence. Their transparent bells, no larger than dinner plates, began pulsing through those ancient seas with a rhythm that matched the very heartbeat of the ocean. 70 contractions per minute, each one a gentle squeeze that pushed water downward and propelled these living umbrellas forward through their 3-dimensional world. There was no urgency in their movement, no desperate struggle for survival. They had discovered something that would elude countless other creatures, the power of patience, the strength found in yielding to the current rather than fighting against it. As the eons passed and Earth's face began to change, these pioneers spread across every ocean. Sea anemones took their turn at evolutionary innovation, choosing to anchor themselves to rocks and coral, becoming living flowers that never needed soil or sunlight. Their bodies, tubes of muscular perfection, could contract to weatherproof domes when storms raged overhead, then bloom again into gardens of tentacles when calmer waters returned. They learned to wait for food to drift within reach, wait for the perfect moment to strike, wait through seasons and centuries with the patience of stones that happened to be alive. The coral polyps made perhaps the most audacious choice of all. These tiny architects, each no bigger than the tip of a pin, decided to become builders. One by one, they began extracting calcium carbonate from seawater, mixing it with proteins to create limestone homes that would outlast empires. Generation after generation, they built upon the foundations their ancestors had laid, creating structures that would eventually be visible from space. But perhaps most remarkably, they discovered partnership. Deep within their tissues, they welcomed tiny algae called zooxanthellae, golden symbionts that would transform sunlight into sugar. In return for shelter and carbon dioxide, these microscopic partners would feed their coral hosts, creating a relationship so successful that it would build living cities across the tropical seas. This was cooperation on a cellular level, a business partnership that predated human civilization by hundreds of millions of years. These early Cnidarians thrived in waters that would have been toxic to most life today. Oxygen levels were different then, the chemistry of the seas alien to what we know. Yet they adapted, evolved, and most importantly, endured. When the great Ordovician extinction swept through the oceans 445 million years ago, killing 85% of all marine species, Cnidarians barely paused in their eternal dance. When the Permian extinction, the most devastating catastrophe in Earth's history, eliminated 96% of marine life 252 million years ago, Cnidarians emerged from the aftermath to bloom again in the recovering seas. What was their secret? How did these seemingly fragile creatures outlast armored trilobites, mighty marine reptiles, and countless other forms that appeared far more robust? The answer lies in their fundamental approach to existence. While other creatures competed fiercely for resources, Cnidarians learned to be satisfied with little. While others built complex organ systems that could fail catastrophically, Cnidarians kept their biology elegantly simple. When environments changed, they didn't resist. They flowed with the changes like water finding its level. Their nervous systems, if we can call them that, were revolutionary in their simplicity. No central brain commanding the body, but instead a network of nerve cells spread throughout their tissues like a living web. When one part of a jellyfish detected food or danger, the message rippled outward through this network, coordinating responses without the need for complex processing centers. It was democracy at FAMES, the cellular level, every part of the organism participating in decisions that kept the whole alive. And then there was their relationship with time itself. Where other creatures lived and died according to the harsh calculus of aging, some Cnidarians discovered something that would seem like magic to any other form of life. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, learned to reverse its own aging process. When faced with injury, starvation, or old age, it could simply transform back into its juvenile form and begin life anew. Death, for this remarkable creature, became merely another life stage to be cycled through as needed. As we follow these ancient mariners through their 540 million year journey, we begin to understand that their success came not from conquering their environment, but from learning to dance with it. In warm seas and cold, in shallow lagoons and abyssal depths, through ice ages and greenhouse periods, through asteroid impacts and volcanic catastrophes, they persisted, not through strength or speed or cunning, but through a kind of liquid wisdom that allowed them to bend without breaking, to yield without surrendering. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine these gentle ancients still pulsing through dark waters around the globe. Picture moon jellies rising from depths where sunlight has never reached, their transparent bells catching bioluminescent sparkles like living stars. Envision coral polyps on distant reefs, each one no larger than a grain of rice, quietly building limestone castles in the darkness, adding their microscopic contribution to structures that will outlast human civilizations. They are out there now, as they have been for longer than we can truly comprehend, teaching us through their very existence that sometimes the most profound strength comes from the softest touch, that the most enduring victories are won not through conquest, but through an ancient and patient art of simply being present in the flow of time. The story of Cnidarians is far from over. Tomorrow, we'll discover how these masters of simplicity became the most efficient travelers in Earth's oceans, moving through water with a grace that human engineers are only beginning to understand. But for now, let their ancient rhythm carry you toward rest, their 540 million year meditation on the art of existence guiding you gently into dreams as vast and peaceful as the seas they call home. Number. In the liquid realm where jellyfish make their home, the laws of movement are written in currents and pressure. In the subtle mathematics of fluid dynamics that govern everything from raindrops to galaxies. Here, in this three-dimensional world without solid ground or stable reference points, these ancient mariners have mastered a form of locomotion so elegant that human engineers spent centuries trying to understand what jellyfish had perfected over 500 million years ago. Watch a moon jelly as it moves through the water column, and you are witnessing one of nature's most sophisticated propulsion systems in action. That gentle, rhythmic pulsing of its bell is not random or primitive. It is a masterclass in jet propulsion, executed with a precision that would make rocket scientists weep with envy. When the jellyfish contracts its bell-shaped body, it doesn't simply push water backward like a paddle. Instead, it creates something far more elegant and efficient. The bell contracts with deliberate force, squeezing water downward through its opening at precisely calculated angles. This expelled water forms what fluid dynamicists call a vortex ring, a donut-shaped whirlpool that spins through the water beneath the jellyfish. But here's where the magic happens. As this vortex ring moves away from the jellyfish, it creates a pressure differential that pulls the creature forward. The jellyfish rides its own wake, surfing the underwater tornado it has created. This biological jet engine operates at 95% efficiency, ATA, a figure that humbles our most advanced submarines and aircraft. Every 70 contractions per minute, perfectly timed, each one generating just enough thrust to maintain the jellyfish's dreamlike journey through its liquid sky. There is no wasted energy here, no unnecessary turbulence, just the pure mathematics of motion, solved by creatures that have no concept of mathematics as we understand it. Consider the moon jelly's journey across the vast Pacific. These transparent travelers can drift for 10,000 miles, following currents invisible to human eyes, their bells marking time like living metronomes in the ocean's symphony. They need no compass, no navigation system, no fuel stops. The Earth's rotation, the pull of the moon, the warming and cooling of surface waters, these become their guidance systems, their fuel, their reason for being. But even more remarkable than their efficiency is their endurance. A single moon jelly can pulse its way across entire ocean basins, its meditation never ending, its rhythm never faltering. 70 beats per minute, hour after hour, day after day, year after year. It is a form of existence so foreign to our hurried world that it seems almost mythical, a creature whose entire life is spent in a kind of moving meditation, a liquid yoga that connects it to currents flowing since before the first continents took shape. And then there are the true masters of oceanic travel, the Portuguese man-o'-war. These are not single creatures at all, but floating cities, colonies of specialized individuals called siphonophores that have chosen cooperation over independence. Each colony stretches 40 meters across the surface of the sea, a living sailboat with a gas-filled bladder that catches the wind like an organic spinnaker. The man-o'-war's strategy is audacious in its simplicity. Why fight the wind when you can harness it? Their translucent sails, filled with a mixture of gases, they manufacture themselves, ride the trade winds across thousands of miles of open ocean. Beneath the surface, their hunting tentacles trail through the water like living fishing lines, some extending 170 meters into the depths, longer than a blue whale, longer than most city blocks. These tentacles are not passive drifting appendages. They are active hunters, pulsing through the water with their own rhythm, sampling the sea for the chemical signatures of prey. When a fish or squid brushes against these nearly invisible threads, the response is instantaneous and overwhelming. Millions of microscopic harpoons fire in perfect synchronization, each one loaded with neurotoxins that paralyze their target in seconds. But perhaps the most astounding navigator of all is Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish. This thumb-sized marvel has achieved something that seems to violate the fundamental laws of biology. TED. It has conquered death itself. When faced with injury, starvation, or simply the burden of old age, this remarkable creature performs the ultimate magic trick. It reverses its aging process entirely, shrinking back to its juvenile polyp form to begin life again. Imagine witnessing this transformation. The adult jellyfish, its bell-shaped body mature and sexually active, begins to contract and dissolve. Its tissues reorganize themselves. Its cells dedifferentiate, becoming young again at the most fundamental level. Within days, what was once a free-swimming adult becomes a juvenile polyp, attached to the seafloor, ready to grow and mature once more. It is biological time travel, a cellular fountain of youth that scientists are only beginning to understand. This process can theoretically continue forever. While every other creature on Earth lives within the boundaries of a lifespan, Turritopsis dohrnii exists outside of time's normal constraints. It has been observed reversing its age dozens of times in laboratory conditions, each resurrection as complete and successful as the last. In the wild, these immortal voyagers may have been alive when the first humans developed language, when the pyramids were built, when Columbus sailed across the Atlantic. The implications stagger the imagination. These creatures have potentially witnessed every human civilization rise and fall, every ice age come and go, every asteroid impact and volcanic eruption of the past several million years. They are living libraries of oceanic history, their very existence a testament to possibilities we are only beginning to explore. As we dive deeper into their world, we discover that jellyfish have also mastered vertical travel through the ocean's layers. Many species undertake daily migrations that dwarf the movements of any terrestrial animal. They rise from the dark depths where they rest during the day, ascending thousands of feet through the water column to feed in the plankton-rich surface waters under cover of darkness. This vertical commute is the largest migration on Earth, performed not by charismatic megafauna like whales or birds, but by countless billions of jellyfish, along with their zooplankton prey. They move in synchronized waves, following signals we are only beginning to decode: temperature gradients, pressure changes, the subtle chemical signatures that mark the boundaries between different water masses. During these migrations, the ocean transforms into a liquid aurora. Many jellyfish species are bioluminescent, their bodies embedded with light-producing organs called photophores. As they pulse through the dark water, they create galaxies of living stars, their blue-green lights flickering in patterns that serve as both communication and camouflage. When disturbed, they flash in brilliant displays that can be seen from space, storms of light rolling through the darkness like underwater lightning. The deep-sea species have taken this mastery of liquid flight to extraordinary extremes. In the Eevee, perpetual darkness of the abyssal plains, 4 kilometers below the surface where the pressure would crush human bones, jellyfish the size of dinner tables drift like ghosts through the blackness. These giants move with impossible grace, their bodies adapted to an environment that exists at the very limits of where life can survive. Here, where the temperature hovers just above freezing and no sunlight has ever penetrated, these creatures have learned to make their own light, their own food, their own reasons for existence. They are living proof that beauty and complexity can flourish in the most alien environments on our planet, that the principles of graceful movement apply whether you're drifting through tropical lagoons or navigating the deepest trenches of the ocean floor. Some species have evolved specialized swimming behaviors that seem to defy logic. The upside-down jellyfish, Cassiopeia, has learned to pulse upside down on shallow seafloors, its bell facing downward, farming algae in its tissues like an underwater greenhouse. Its gentle pulsing creates currents that bring fresh nutrients to its symbiotic partners while preventing sediment from settling on its body. Others have mastered the art of cooperative swimming. Certain siphonophore colonies can coordinate the movement of hundreds of individual swimming bells, each one pulsing in perfect synchronization with its neighbors. The result is a creature that moves through the water like a living train, each car contributing to the forward momentum while the entire organism glides through the sea with hypnotic smoothness. As we contemplate these masters of liquid flight, we begin to understand that they have solved problems we are only beginning to recognize. In a world where fluid dynamics govern everything from the flow of blood through our veins to the movement of air over aircraft wings, jellyfish have spent 500 million years perfecting the art of moving efficiently through liquid mediums. Their solutions are elegant, sustainable, and remarkably energy efficient. They waste nothing, fight nothing, resist nothing. Instead, they have learned to work with the fundamental forces of their environment, APA, pressure, current, gravity, and time itself. They move through water the way thoughts move through consciousness, the way dreams flow through sleeping minds. Tonight, as you settle into rest, imagine joining these ancient travelers on their endless journey through liquid space. Picture yourself moving with their rhythm, 70 gentle pulses per minute, each one carrying you further into the peaceful depths of sleep. Feel the water supporting your weight, the current carrying you forward without effort, the vast blue surrounding you like the most comfortable embrace imaginable. Tomorrow, we will discover how these patient architects have built living cities beneath the waves, structures so magnificent they can be seen from orbit, so enduring they have shaped the very chemistry of our oceans. But for now, let the rhythm of their liquid flight guide you deeper into dreams, their 500 million year meditation on movement, carrying you gently through the night like a current that knows exactly where it's going. Number, along the northeastern coast of Australia, stretching across 2,300 kilometers of azure water, lies a structure so vast it can be seen from space, so complex it influences weather patterns across an entire continent. The Great Barrier Reef is not built of steel and concrete, not planned by architects or constructed by machines. It is a living city, grown one microscopic skeleton at a time by creatures smaller than your fingernail, built over 20 million years through the most patient construction project in Earth's history. Each coral polyp, and there are billions upon billions of them, is an architect, engineer, and construction worker all at once. No larger than a rice grain, these tiny animals have mastered the art of extracting calcium and carbonate ions from seawater, combining them with proteins to create limestone foundations stronger than most human-made materials. Day after day, month after month, year after year, they build upon the work of their ancestors, adding their own microscopic contribution to structures that will outlast civilizations. But this is not construction as we understand it. There are no blueprints, no project managers, no master plan. Instead, each polyp follows ancient genetic instructions, chemical signals, and environmental cues that guide the growth of the colony. The result is organic architecture on a scale that dwarfs human achievements, living cities that house millions of species, create their own weather systems, and transform the very chemistry of the oceans around them. Consider the mathematics of this construction. A single coral polyp, working alone, might lay down calcium carbonate at a rate barely measurable by human instruments. But when millions of polyps work together across a single reef, they collectively produce 35 billion kilograms of limestone annually. That's the equivalent of building a limestone mountain every few decades, using nothing but seawater, sunshine, and the patient labor of creatures so small they could fit through the eye of a needle. The secret to their success lies in one of nature's most remarkable partnerships. Deep within the tissues of every coral polyp live millions of microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. These golden symbionts have found the perfect real estate, ATA, a transparent animal that carries them toward the sunlight they need, while protecting them from the currents that would otherwise sweep them away into the dark depths. In return for shelter and carbon dioxide, these tiny algae work tirelessly as underwater farmers. They capture photons from the sun and transform them into sugar through photosynthesis, sharing their sweet profits with their coral hosts. It's a business. Relationships so successful that it has built entire ecosystems, so efficient that it allows coral reefs to thrive in tropical waters that are otherwise nutritionally barren. 24. liquid deserts made fertile by this ancient partnership. The algae give corals their colors: brilliant yellows, electric blues, vibrant purples, and every shade in between. A healthy coral is actually a living rainbow, each polyp glowing with the golden presence of millions of photosynthetic partners. When you look at a coral reef in full sunlight, you are seeing one of the most successful collaborations in the history of life on Earth, painted in colors that no human artist could imagine. But the true genius of coral construction becomes apparent when we examine how these cities organize themselves. Unlike human settlements that grow outward from a center, coral reefs grow upward toward the light, their three-dimensional architecture creating countless niches and microhabitats. Brain corals form massive domes that can shelter entire communities of fish. Staghorn corals branch like underwater forests, their antler-like projections creating highways for small creatures to navigate safely through the reef. Table corals spread their flat surfaces like landing platforms, maximizing their exposure to sunlight while creating shaded refuges beneath. Plate corals grow in overlapping terraces, like natural amphitheaters that channel water flow and concentrate nutrients. Each growth form serves a purpose, fills a role in the reef's economy, contributes to the overall health and stability of the living city. The construction never stops. Even as we speak, coral polyps on reefs around the world are laying down new limestone, growing their colonies outward and upward toward the surface. They work through day and night, through calm seas and raging storms, through the changing seasons and the slow cycles of climate that unfold over centuries. Their construction schedule is measured not in months or years, but in geological time, the patient accumulation of limestone that builds islands, shapes coastlines, and creates some of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on Earth. And like any great city, coral reefs support enormous populations. A single reef system may house more species than an entire rainforest. Fish dart through coral canyons like living jewels, their colors evolve to match the brilliant backdrop of their coral home. Sea turtles navigate reef highways that their ancestors have traveled for millions of years. Sharks patrol the reef's borders like ancient guardians, maintaining the delicate balance that keeps the system healthy. The architecture creates its own microclimate. Water flowing through the complex three-dimensional structure of the reef creates upwelling currents that bring nutrients from the depths. The countless nooks and crannies provide nursery areas where juvenile fish can hide from predators while they grow. The reef's massive calcium carbonate structure buffers the chemistry of the surrounding water, creating stable conditions that benefit every creature in the ecosystem. Perhaps most remarkably, these living cities reproduce themselves through one of nature's most spectacular events. Once or twice each year, triggered by precise combinations of water temperature, lunar cycles, and seasonal timing, entire reef systems engage in synchronized spawning. On these magical nights, billions of coral polyps release their eggs and sperm simultaneously, turning the water into living snowstorms of reproductive cells. The timing must be perfect. If a coral releases its gametes too early or too late, they will miss the chance to meet potential partners from other colonies. So the corals have learned to read environmental signals with extraordinary precision. Water temperature changes of less than 1 degree Celsius, the subtle gravitational pull of moon phases, even the angle of sunlight penetrating the water. When all conditions to align, the reef explodes into reproductive activity. Imagine witnessing this underwater blizzard of new life. The water becomes thick with coral eggs and sperm, creating clouds so dense they reduce visibility to mere inches. Fish feast on this sudden abundance of protein while the fertilized eggs begin their journey, drifting on currents that will carry them to new locations where they might establish new colonies, new cities, new partnerships between animal and algae. Those tiny larvae that survive the journey will settle on suitable hard surfaces and begin the ancient process once again. A single polyp, no bigger than a grain of sand, will start extracting calcium carbonate from seawater. It will welcome its first algal partners. It will begin building, one microscopic skeleton at a time, a structure that might someday span hundreds of kilometers and support millions of lives. The oldest coral colonies we know of have been growing continuously for over 4,000 years. These ancient architects began their construction work when the Egyptian pyramids were young, when Stonehenge was being erected on distant Salisbury Plain. They have been building through the rise and fall of entire civilizations, through ice ages and warm periods, through changes in sea level and ocean chemistry that would challenge any human construction project. Their limestone skeletons serve as detailed libraries of environmental history. Scientists can read the chemistry of ancient coral skeletons like tree rings, discovering what the ocean was like centuries ago, how temperatures have changed, how storms and droughts have shaped the reef over deep time. These coral cities are living chronicles of our planet's environmental story, their calcium carbonate foundations recording changes in ocean chemistry with precision that rivals our most sophisticated instruments. But perhaps the most humbling aspect of coral construction is its sustainability. These living cities produce no waste. Everything is recycled, reused, repurposed. When a coral polyp dies, its limestone skeleton becomes foundation for new growth. When storms break coral branches, the fragments often take root in new locations, spreading the reef rather than damaging it. The cities grow by converting abundant raw materials, seawater, and sunlight into permanent structures that enhance rather than degrade their environment. Modern human cities consume enormous amounts of energy and materials, generate vast quantities of waste, and often poison the air and water around them. Coral cities, by contrast, actually improve their environment as they grow. They create habitat, purify water, buffer coastlines from storm damage, and support biological diversity on a scale that makes our greatest national parks seem simple by comparison. As we contemplate these patient architects and their magnificent constructions, we begin to understand that we are witnessing a completely different approach to building and organizing complex systems. No central planning, no hierarchical control, no waste, no pollution, just millions of small builders following simple rules, creating structures of breathtaking beauty and complexity through the accumulated power of collaborative effort over deep time. Tonight, as you rest, imagine these coral cities continuing their ancient work in the darkness beneath tropical seas. Picture the tiny polyps, each one no larger than a pinhead, steadily building tomorrow's reefs one limestone crystal at a time. Feel the patience in their work, the quiet confidence of creatures who measure success not in quarters or fiscal years, but in centuries and millennia. Tomorrow we will discover the remarkable weapons these gentle builders carry, microscopic arsenals more sophisticated than anything human engineers have devised, deployed with surgical precision by creatures that seem the very embodiment of peaceful existence. But for now, let the rhythm of reef construction carry you into sleep, the ancient patience of coral growth slowing your thoughts to the deep time pace of limestone accumulation, grain by grain, year by year, building dreams as enduring as the reefs themselves. Number within every gentle sea anemone swaying in the current, inside each translucent jellyfish drifting through tropical waters, lies an arsenal that would make a weapons engineer gasp in admiration. These creatures, which seem the very embodiment of peaceful existence, carry millions of microscopic weapons so sophisticated, so precisely engineered, that they operate faster than the human eye can perceive, more accurately than our most advanced targeting systems. Hidden within specialized cells called cnidocytes, the very structures that give cnidarians their name, rest tiny harpoons called nematocysts. Each one is a masterpiece of biological engineering, a coiled thread under pressure so intense it defies imagination. 140 atmospheres of pressure, equivalent to standing 4,000 feet underwater, compressed into a cellular space smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. When triggered, these microscopic missiles fire at 700 meters per second. To put this in perspective, that's faster than a rifle bullet, faster than the speed of sound through water, faster than anything else in the biological world. The firing mechanism operates in less than 3 milliseconds, so quickly that if you could somehow watch it in real time, the harpoon would be embedded in its target before your brain could register that the weapon had been deployed. Consider the engineering marvel of a single nematocyst. The coiled thread, when fully extended, may be 30 times longer than the cell that contains it. Imagine fitting a 30-foot rope into a 1-foot box under pressure that would instantly crush most materials, ready to uncoil with explosive force at a moment's notice. The thread itself is hollow, serving as both harpoon and hypodermic needle, delivering precisely measured doses of venom through its tip. The triggering mechanism is equally remarkable. Each cnidocyte is equipped with a hair-like trigger called a cnidocyl, inido, a microscopic tripwire, so sensitive it can detect the slightest brush from a passing fish, the gentlest pressure from a curious predator. But this system is not indiscriminate. Through chemical sensors, the cnidocyte can distinguish between prey, predator, and harmless debris floating past in the current. It knows when to fire and when to wait. The box jellyfish, Chironex fleckeri, Hysmos, one of the most venomous creatures on Earth, carries this weaponry to its ultimate extreme. Each individual jellyfish possesses up to 5 billion cnidocytes, an army of microscopic soldiers distributed across its bell and trailing tentacles. 5 billion weapons, each one loaded and ready, each one capable of delivering venom potent enough to stop a human heart in 3 minutes. Yet for all their lethal potential, these weapons are deployed with surgical precision. When a tiny copepod, a crustacean no larger than a grain of rice, brushes against a jellyfish tentacle, the response is immediate but measured. Only the cnidocytes in direct contact with the prey fire their harpoons. The venom dose is calibrated perfectly, enough to paralyze the copepod instantly, but not so much as to damage its delicate tissues. The jellyfish needs its prey intact, its nutrients preserved. This precision becomes even more remarkable when we consider that cnidarians have no centralized nervous system to coordinate their weapons. There is no brain giving orders, no command center calculating trajectories or venom doses. Instead, each cnidocyte operates independently, making split-second decisions based on local chemical and mechanical signals. It's biological democracy in action. N18 day, millions of individual cells, each one a complete weapon system, working together to defend and feed the organism. C. Anemones have perfected a different approach to weaponry. These flower-like creatures anchor themselves to rocks and coral, their tentacles waving in the current like an underwater wheat field. Each tentacle bristles with thousands of cnidocytes, creating a forest of microscopic weapons that can fire in perfect synchronization when prey ventures too close. Watch a small fish approach a sea anemone, and you witness one of nature's most efficient hunting strategies in action. The fish, perhaps seeking shelter among what appear to be harmless plant fronds, brushes against the tentacles. In that instant, thousands of nematocysts fire simultaneously, their harpoons penetrating the fish's scales and skin, delivering paralytic toxins directly into its bloodstream. The fish freezes mid-swim, its nervous system overwhelmed by neurotoxins that block the transmission of nerve impulses. Within seconds, it becomes completely immobilized while remaining alive and conscious, the perfect state for the anemone's purposes. The tentacles then work together to guide the paralyzed prey toward the anemone's mouth, where it will be slowly digested over the course of several hours. Different species of cnidarians have evolved different types of nematocysts for different purposes. Some fire simple spears designed to penetrate tough skin. Others deploy barbed harpoons that anchor themselves in soft tissue, making escape impossible. Still others release tangled nets of sticky threads that ensnare small prey like microscopic lassos. Each type represents millions of years of evolutionary refinement, biological weapon systems honed to perfection through countless generations of hunter and hunted. The venom itself is a chemical masterpiece, a cocktail of compounds designed to affect specific biological systems with devastating efficiency. Neurotoxins attack the nervous system, causing paralysis and respiratory failure. Cytolysins destroy cell membranes, causing tissues to break down. Hemolysins attack blood cells, disrupting circulation. Cardiotoxins target the heart, causing arrhythmias and cardiac arrest. But perhaps most remarkably, many Cnidarian venoms are highly specific to certain types of animals. A toxin that can kill a fish in seconds may have no effect whatsoever on a different species. This specificity allows Cnidarians to fine-tune their weapons for particular prey while avoiding damage to beneficial partners or symbionts. Some sea anemones have developed such precise chemical weapons that they can distinguish between different species of fish, deploying appropriate toxins based on the identity of their target. A clownfish, protected by its special mucus coating and symbiotic relationship with the anemone, can swim safely among tentacles that would instantly paralyze any other fish of similar size. The delivery system for these chemical weapons is equally sophisticated. The hollow nematocyst thread doesn't simply inject venom like a syringe. Instead, it uses a combination of pressure injection and molecular pumps to deliver toxins at precise concentrations. The thread can even vary the venom composition during injection, starting with fast-acting paralytic agents and following up with slower tissue-degrading enzymes. In the deep ocean, where prey is scarce and every hunting opportunity must count, some Cnidarians have evolved nematocysts of extraordinary power. Deep-sea siphonophores trailing tentacles, hundreds of meters long, deploy weapons that can instantly immobilize prey much larger than themselves. Their venom is so potent that a single touch can paralyze a fish weighing hundreds of times more than the siphonophore itself. Yet for all their lethal efficiency, these weapon systems operate within strict biological constraints. Each nematocyst can fire only once. After discharge, the entire cell must be replaced, a process that takes time and energy. This creates interesting tactical decisions for the Cnidarian. Fire too early or too often, and you may be defenseless when a real threat appears. Fire too late or too seldom, and opportunities for food or protection may be lost. Some species have evolved sophisticated rationing systems, carefully managing their weapons inventory. They can assess the size and value of potential prey, deploying only the minimum number of cnidocytes necessary to secure a meal. Large, valuable prey may trigger massive simultaneous discharges from thousands of weapons. Small, less nutritious targets may warrant only a few precisely placed shots. The reloading process is itself a marvel of cellular engineering. After a cnidocyte fires its nematocyst, specialized cells called cnidoblasts begin the complex process of manufacturing a replacement. New threads must be coiled under enormous pressure, new venom cocktails must be synthesized, new triggering mechanisms must be assembled and calibrated. The entire process takes days or weeks, during which the Cnidarian operates with a reduced weapons complement. This biological arms race has been ongoing for over 500 million years, driving innovations in both weapons and defenses that rival anything human technology has produced. Some fish have evolved thick mucus coatings that can neutralize Cnidarian toxins. Others have developed specialized scales that deflect nematocyst harpoons. Still others have learned behavioral strategies to avoid triggering cnidocyte discharge in the first place. In response, Cnidarians have developed increasingly sophisticated targeting systems, more powerful toxins, and more efficient delivery mechanisms. The evolutionary arms race continues today, played out in coral reefs and open oceans around the world, each generation of hunter and prey pushing the boundaries of biological possibility. As we contemplate these microscopic weapons and their gentle wielders, we encounter one of nature's most profound paradoxes. The creatures that seem most peaceful, most passive, vulnerable, carry within themselves arsenals that surpass human military technology in speed, precision, and efficiency. They remind us that in nature, appearance, and reality often diverge in the most unexpected ways. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, consider the sea anemones anchored to rocks in tropical shallows, their tentacles swaying peacefully in the current, their billions of microscopic weapons ready but restrained. Picture the jellyfish pulsing through dark waters, each one a living spacecraft armed with systems more sophisticated than anything we have yet devised, yet deployed with a wisdom that comes from 500 million years of evolutionary refinement. Tomorrow, we will explore how these remarkable creatures first encountered human civilizations, how scientists and explorers discovered the hidden complexities of Cnidarian life, and how these meetings changed our understanding of what it means to be alive in an interconnected world. But for now, let the precision of their ancient weaponry guide you into dreams as carefully calibrated as nematocyst venom, as swift and sure as microscopic harpoons finding their targets in the vast blue depths of the sleeping mind. On a spring morning in 1864, in a cramped laboratory overlooking the Baltic Sea, German naturalist Ernst Haeckel bent over his microscope and discovered a universe that would forever change how humanity understood the nature of life itself. The tissue sample before him, a fragment of jellyfish bell preserved in alcohol, revealed under magnification a geometric perfection that seemed to bridge the gap between living organism and mathematical theorem. Haeckel's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted the focus, bringing into sharp relief the radial symmetry of Cnidarian cells arranged in patterns that echoed the most elegant architectural designs. Here were living mandalas, biological crystals, organisms whose very structure embodied the mathematical principles that governed everything from snowflakes to galaxies. In that moment, gazing into the microscopic architecture of ancient sea creatures, Haeckel realized he was looking at life's own sacred geometry made manifest. His detailed drawings, published in the groundbreaking work Art Forms in Nature, would introduce the world to Cnidarians, not as simple primitive creatures, but as masterpieces of biological design. Each illustration captured the impossible delicacy of jellyfish bells, the fractal complexity of coral polyps, the otherworldly beauty of siphonophore colonies. For the first time, humans could see what 500 million years of evolution had sculpted in the depths, forms so perfect they seemed designed by divine mathematicians. But Haeckel was not the first human to encounter these floating gardens of the sea. Centuries earlier, Portuguese navigators had met the creatures that would bear their nation's name in circumstances far less peaceful than a laboratory study. In 1513, as Vasco Núñez de Balboa's ships explored the warm waters of the Pacific, sailors began reporting encounters with what they described as sea monsters, translucent demons trailing deadly tentacles that could kill a man with a single touch. The Portuguese man-o'-war, with its iridescent gas bladder catching sunlight like a jeweled crown and its tentacles streaming invisibly through the blue water, must have seemed like something from mythology to those early explorers. When crew members, seeking to cool themselves in the tropical heat, dove from their ships, only to surface screaming in agony, their skin covered in red welts that burned like fire, the sailors could only conclude they had encountered supernatural guardians of these new seas. It would take centuries of careful observation before humans began to understand that these monsters were actually floating cities, colonies of specialized individuals working together as a single organism. The gas-filled bladder was not a weapon but a sail, engineered by evolution to catch trade winds and carry the colony across thousands of miles of open ocean. The deadly tentacles were not instruments of random malice, but sophisticated hunting systems, deploying chemical weapons with precision that human technology could barely comprehend. Captain James Cook, during his epic voyages across the Pacific in the 1770s, encountered jellyfish blooms that stretched beyond every horizon, living galaxies of pulsing bells that turned the ocean into a constellation of biological stars. His ship's naturalist, Joseph Banks, wrote with wonder about nights when the sea itself seemed alive with light, when every wave crest sparkled with bioluminescent fire, as countless jellyfish responded to the ship's passage through their domain. These encounters with massive jellyfish aggregations challenged everything Europeans thought they knew about the ocean's capacity to support life. Here were creatures that seemed to violate the basic rules of biology, animals with no hearts, no brains, no blood, yet somehow thriving in numbers that defied imagination. Banks described floating through jellyfish swarms so dense that the ship's passage was slowed by the sheer mass of living tissue, bells so numerous they formed a carpet stretching to every horizon. The crew learned to read these encounters as oceanic weather systems. Massive jellyfish blooms often preceded changes in wind patterns, water temperature, or current direction. The creatures seemed to sense environmental shifts days or weeks before human instruments could detect them, their populations exploding in response to conditions invisible to 18th century science. Cook began to understand that these floating gardens were not random accumulations of simple animals, but complex biological systems as organized and predictable as any terrestrial ecosystem. As the 19th century progressed, and marine biology emerged as a formal science, researchers began to piece together the true scope of Cnidarian diversity and sophistication. In 1847, British naturalist Edward Forbes descended in one of the first diving bells to observe jellyfish in their natural habitat. His reports of their graceful movement, their apparent responsiveness to light and current, and their complex behavioral patterns contradicted prevailing notions of these creatures as simple, stimulus-response machines. Forbes watched jellyfish coordinate their movements in ways that suggested communication, saw them respond to threats with what appeared to be intelligence, observed them hunt with strategies that seemed to require planning and foresight. How could creatures without brains exhibit such sophisticated behaviors? How could animals with such simple anatomy perform such complex tasks? These questions would puzzle scientists for decades to come. The breakthrough that would revolutionize our understanding of Cnidarian biology came in 1988 in the warm waters off the Italian coast. Marine biologist Christian Sommer was studying the life cycle of a tiny jellyfish called Turritopsis dohrnii when he observed something that should have been impossible. The adult jellies in his laboratory tanks, instead of dying when they reached the end of their natural lifespan, began to reverse their development, transforming back into juvenile polyps. Sommer watched in amazement as the jellyfish's bell-shaped body contracted and reorganized itself, its tissues de-differentiating and rearranging into the form of a sexually immature polyp. It was as if a butterfly had somehow transformed back into a caterpillar, or an adult human had reverted to childhood. The implications staggered the scientific community. Here was a creature that had apparently conquered death itself, achieving biological immortality through a process no other animal was known to possess. The discovery of the immortal jellyfish forced scientists to reconsider everything they thought they knew about aging, death, and the fundamental constraints of biological existence. If a cnidarian could reverse its own aging process, what did that mean for our understanding of mortality? What secrets of cellular regeneration were hidden in the tissues of these ancient creatures? Research into Turritopsis dohrnii has since opened new avenues in the study of human aging, cancer research, and regenerative medicine. But perhaps the most profound shift in human understanding of cnidarians came from deep-sea exploration in the 20th century, when submersibles first descended into the abyssal depths and their lights illuminated creatures never before seen by human eyes. The diversity and beauty of deep-sea cnidarians stunned even experienced marine biologists. Here were jellyfish the size of dining tables, their bodies glowing with patterns of bioluminescent light that seemed almost alien in their complexity. The deep-sea footage revealed Cnidarians living in environments that challenged every assumption about the limits of life on Earth. In trenches where the pressure would crush human bones, at depths where no sunlight had ever penetrated, in waters so cold they bordered on freezing, these creatures thrived with an elegance that took the breath away. Their movements through the darkness seemed choreographed by some cosmic intelligence, their light displays more beautiful than any human art. These discoveries forced scientists to expand their definition of what constituted a habitable environment. If complex, beautiful creatures could thrive in the deepest, darkest, most hostile places on Earth, what did that mean for the possibility of life elsewhere in the universe? The Cnidarians of the deep ocean became ambassadors for the incredible adaptability of life itself, living proof that beauty and complexity could flourish in the most unlikely places. Modern research has revealed the full scope of Cnidarian sophistication. We now know that some species can regenerate their entire bodies from small fragments, that others can coordinate the behavior of thousands of individuals in a single colony, that still others possess sensory systems capable of detecting environmental changes with extraordinary precision. We've discovered that coral reefs create their own weather systems, that jellyfish migrations represent the largest movements of biomass on the planet, that Cnidarian nervous systems operate on principles that are inspiring new approaches to artificial intelligence. The study of Cnidarian genetics has revealed that these seemingly simple creatures possess remarkably complex genomes, with genes that control development, regeneration, and aging in ways that could revolutionize human medicine. Research into Cnidarian toxins has led to the development of new painkillers, while studies of their regenerative abilities are opening new possibilities for treating human injuries and diseases. Perhaps most remarkably, scientists have discovered that many Cnidarian species possess what can only be described as collective intelligence. Siphonophore colonies coordinate the actions of thousands of individual organisms with a precision that suggests sophisticated communication networks. Portuguese man-o'-war colonies can apparently decide when to dive below storm waves, when to adjust their sail configuration for optimal wind capture, when to deploy their hunting tentacles for maximum efficiency. These discoveries have fundamentally changed how we view intelligence itself. If creatures without centralized nervous systems can exhibit complex coordinated behaviors, what does that tell us about the nature of consciousness and decision-making? The Cnidarians have become unexpected teachers, showing us that intelligence can take forms we never imagined, that coordination and communication can occur through mechanisms we're only beginning to understand. As we reflect on the history of human encounter with Cnidarians, we see a progression from fear and misunderstanding to wonder and respect. These creatures that once seemed like sea monsters have revealed themselves to be some of the most sophisticated organisms on Earth, masters of biological technologies that surpass human engineering in elegance and efficiency. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, imagine Ernst Haeckel in his laboratory, his eye pressed to the microscope, discovering for the first time the geometric perfection hidden in jellyfish tissue. Picture Captain Cook's ships moving through bioluminescent seas, the water alive with living stars responding to their passage. Envision Christian Sommer watching in amazement as a tiny jellyfish reversed the flow of time itself, transforming from adult back to youth before his eyes. Tomorrow, we will explore how these remarkable discoveries have led us to understand Cnidarians as sentinels of our changing oceans, early warning systems that can tell us what our future seas might hold. But for now, let the wonder of human discovery carry you into dreams, the excitement of scientific revelation guiding you gently towards sleep, as vast and peaceful as the oceans where these marvels continue their ancient dance, waiting to reveal new secrets to those patient enough to look, to listen, to wonder at the extraordinary hidden within the seemingly simple. In the warming waters of our changing planet, ancient messengers are bringing us news from the future, As ocean temperatures rise by just 2 degrees Celsius, a shift so subtle human skin can barely detect it, jellyfish populations explode by 62%, transforming marine ecosystems faster than scientists can study them. These creatures, unchanged in their essential design for 500 million years, have become our most sensitive instruments for measuring the pulse of tomorrow's oceans. They are early warning systems written in living tissue, their population booms and crashes, signaling changes in ocean chemistry that won't be measurable by our most sophisticated instruments for decades to come. When jellyfish blooms suddenly appear in waters where they've never been seen before, when familiar species vanish from their traditional ranges, when new behavioral patterns emerge in populations that have followed the same rhythms for millennia, the ocean is speaking to us in a language we're only beginning to decode. Consider the humble moon jelly, that translucent wanderer we've followed through ancient seas and modern understanding. In the North Sea, populations that remained stable for centuries began erupting in the 1990s, creating blooms so massive they clogged fishing nets, shut down power plants, and forced beaches to close across northern Europe. Scientists initially dismissed these events as natural fluctuations, cyclical patterns that would eventually return to normal, but the blooms kept coming, growing larger and more frequent with each passing year. Researchers began to understand they were witnessing something unprecedented, a fundamental shift in marine ecosystems, driven by changes in water temperature, ocean acidity, and nutrient distribution. The moon jellies weren't simply responding to these changes, they were amplifying them, their massive populations consuming zooplankton that fish had depended on for food, altering the very structure of marine food webs. In the Mediterranean, barrel jellyfish the size of washing machines began appearing in waters where they had never been recorded. These gentle giants, native to cooler Atlantic waters, followed warming currents through the Strait of Gibraltar and established breeding populations in their new home. Their arrival marked a biological milestone, and why? The Mediterranean was becoming warm enough to support species that had been excluded by temperature barriers for thousands of years. The message was clear to those who knew how to read it. The ocean's fundamental chemistry was changing, and Cnidarians were the first to respond. Their simple body plans, their efficient metabolisms, their lack of complex organ systems that could fail under stress, not to loke, all the features that had helped them survive 5 mass extinctions, now made them perfect indicators of environmental change. But nowhere is this story more dramatic than in the world's coral reefs, those living cities we explored in earlier chapters. As atmospheric carbon dioxide levels rise, the ocean absorbs more and more of this greenhouse gas, gradually becoming more acidic. For coral polyps, whose entire existence depends on extracting calcium carbonate from seawater to build their limestone homes, this acidification represents an existential threat. The chemistry is relentless in its simplicity. As seawater becomes more acidic, it becomes harder for corals to extract the building materials they need. Existing calcium carbonate structures begin to dissolve faster than they can be rebuilt. Coral growth slows, then stops, then reverses as the ocean itself begins to digest the very foundations of reef ecosystems. The Great Bleaching Event of 1998 offered humanity its first glimpse of what this future might look like. In a single year, as ocean temperatures spiked across the tropics, 16% of the world's coral reefs turned bone white as their algal partners abandoned them. The symbiotic relationship that had built living cities for 20 million years broke down in a matter of weeks, leaving behind skeletal ghost towns in what had once been the most vibrant ecosystems on Earth. But even in this seeming catastrophe, the resilience and adaptability of Cnidarians shone through. Some coral colonies, rather than dying, began forming new partnerships with different species of algae, the heat-tolerant varieties that could survive in the warming waters. These evolutionary experiments, played out on reefs around the world, represent coral's attempt to adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Scientists studying these survivor corals have discovered remarkable flexibility in what had once seemed like rigid partnerships. Coral polyps can apparently shop around for new algal partners, testing different species to see which ones perform best under current conditions. Some are forming relationships with algae that produce different pigments, creating coral reefs with colors never before seen in nature, adaptations painted in living blues and purples and greens that represent hope for reef survival in a changing world. In laboratories around the globe, researchers are working to assist this natural adaptation process. They're cultivating heat-resistant corals, selecting for individuals that can survive in warmer, more acidic waters. They're experimenting with probiotics for corals, i.e., beneficial bacteria that might help polyps cope with stress. They're even exploring genetic techniques that could help corals develop resistance to bleaching and disease. These efforts represent a new kind of partnership between humans and Cnidarians, not the exploitation that has characterized much of our relationship with marine life, but genuine collaboration in the face of environmental challenges we've helped create. Coral nurseries now dot the tropics, underwater gardens where scientists grow coral fragments that might one day reseed dying reefs. The process is painstaking and hopeful in equal measure. Tiny coral fragments, each one genetically unique, are mounted on underwater Christmas trees where they grow for months or years before being transplanted to degraded reef areas. Some experiments succeed spectacularly, with transplanted corals establishing thriving new colonies. Others fail as environmental stresses prove too severe for even the most carefully selected survivors. But perhaps the most profound message from these coral sentinels comes not from their struggles, but from their successes. Ancient reef systems in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, adapted to extreme temperatures and high salinity, are providing blueprints for coral survival in tomorrow's oceans. These populations have already solved the problems that threaten other reefs. They've evolved partnerships with super-tolerant algae, developed resistance to bleaching, learned to thrive in conditions that would kill their tropical cousins. Meanwhile, in the open ocean, other Cnidarian messengers are telling different stories about our changing seas. Jellyfish blooms are appearing in Arctic waters as ice melts and temperatures rise, their populations tracking the retreat of ice sheets with startling precision. Species that spent millions of years confined to tropical waters are now establishing populations in temperate zones, following warming currents into territories that were previously too cold for their survival. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, has become an unexpected conquistador in this warming world. Its ability to reverse its aging process gives it extraordinary resilience in the face of environmental stress. When conditions become unfavorable, it simply transforms back to its juvenile form and waits for better times. This strategy has allowed it to spread from its original Mediterranean home to oceans around the world, carried by ship traffic, and aided by rising temperatures that make more waters suitable for its survival. Some scientists now refer to Turritopsis dohrnii as the world's most successful invasive species, though invasive hardly seems appropriate for a creature that was swimming in Earth's oceans millions of years before humans appeared. Perhaps it's more accurate to say that this immortal wanderer is reclaiming territories from which it was once excluded by climate barriers that are now dissolving in warming seas. The deep ocean, too, is sending messages through its Cnidarian inhabitants. Species that once lived only in the coldest, deepest waters are migrating toward the poles as their preferred temperature zones shift poleward with climate change. Deep-sea research stations are documenting the appearance of jellyfish species in Arctic waters where they've never been recorded, living evidence of how climate change is reshuffling life, even in the most remote corners of our planet. But Cnidarians are not passive victims of environmental change. Yes, they are active participants in shaping the oceans of the future. Massive jellyfish blooms consume enormous quantities of zooplankton, altering the base of marine food webs and affecting everything from commercial fisheries to the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Their population explosions can trigger cascading effects that transform entire marine ecosystems. In some cases, these transformations create new opportunities. Jellyfish blooms provide food for sea turtles, whose populations have been struggling due to habitat loss and plastic pollution. The explosion of gelatinous zooplankton creates new ecological niches that innovative species are learning to exploit. Some fish populations are adapting to feed on jellyfish, polyps, and larvae, developing new hunting strategies and dietary preferences. As we peer into the uncertain future of our oceans, Cnidarians offer both warnings and reasons for hope. Their sensitivity to environmental change makes them invaluable early warning systems, giving us decades of advance notice about changes that will eventually affect all marine life. Their remarkable adaptability suggests that life will find ways to persist even in dramatically altered oceans. The coral reefs of tomorrow may look very different from those we know today. They may be dominated by different species, painted in new colors, built through novel partnerships between corals and algae we're only beginning to discover. The jellyfish of the future may inhabit waters where ice once reigned, their populations responding to environmental rhythms we can't yet predict. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, imagine these sentinel creatures continuing their ancient work in tomorrow's seas. Picture coral polyps in a laboratory nursery, slowly building new partnerships with heat-tolerant algae, preparing for their eventual return to warming reefs. Envision moon jellies pulsing through Arctic waters that their ancestors never knew, their transparent bells catching light that once reflected off permanent ice. Tomorrow, we will explore the deep peace that comes from understanding our connection to these ancient mariners, the calming rhythm of their existence that can guide us toward rest and reflection. But for now, let the wisdom of their adaptation carry you into sleep, their 500 million year journey through changing seas, reminding us that life's greatest strength lies not in resistance to change, but in the graceful art of flowing with it, finding new ways to thrive in whatever world tomorrow may bring. In the deepest ocean trenches and the shallowest tide pools, as night settles over waters both familiar and strange, Cnidarians continue their ancient dance of expansion and contraction, a rhythm that connects them to the very heartbeat of the planet. Their transparent bodies catch moonlight and transform it into living poetry, reminding us that some of nature's most profound innovations come wrapped in the simplest forms, that the most enduring truths are often the gentlest ones. Here, at the end of our journey, through 540 million years of Cnidarian wisdom, we find ourselves in the presence of something timeless and deeply calming. These creatures have witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the formation and erosion of mountain ranges, the advance and retreat of ice sheets that carved the world we know. Through it all, they have maintained their essential nature, patient, resilient, gracefully adapted to the flow of time itself. 4,000-year-old coral colonies in the Red Sea have watched the rise and fall of entire civilizations, their calcium carbonate skeletons recording the ocean's chemical history in layers more precise than tree rings. These ancient architects began their construction work when the Egyptian pyramids were still gleaming white limestone monuments on the Giza Plateau, when Stonehenge was being erected on distant Salisbury Plain, when the first cities were taking shape in Mesopotamia. They have been building through the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, through the classical civilizations of Greece and Rome, through the Dark Ages and the Renaissance, through the Industrial Revolution and the Space Age. Generation after generation of coral polyps, each one living for only a few years, contributing their microscopic skeletons to structures that outlast empires. It is a kind of immortality achieved not through the persistence of individuals, but through the continuity of purpose, the patient accumulation of limestone that creates permanence from the most temporary of lives. When we contemplate these living chronicles, we begin to understand something profound about the nature of time itself. Our human lives, measured in decades, seem hurried and frantic compared to the coral's patient construction schedule. Our civilizations, lasting centuries or millennia, are brief episodes in the coral's much longer story. Yet both human and coral are part of the same cosmic narrative, the same unfolding story of complexity emerging from simplicity, of consciousness arising from matter, of life finding ever more beautiful ways to express itself. The mathematics of Cnidarian form, ITI, their radial symmetry, their fractal branching patterns, their geometric perfection, ITI, creates a visual harmony that naturally relaxes the human mind. Scientists studying the neurology of aesthetic experience have discovered that our brains respond to these patterns with measurable decreases in stress hormones, reductions in blood pressure, and shifts toward more peaceful brainwave states. There is something in the elegant simplicity of Cnidarian design that speaks directly to our deepest need for order, beauty, and calm. Perhaps this is why watching jellyfish has become a form of meditation for millions of people around the world. Aquarium exhibits featuring moon jellies draw visitors who stand mesmerized for hours, their breathing gradually synchronizing with the jelly's pulsing rhythm. The gentle, repetitive motion of these transparent bells seems to slow time itself, creating a pocket of tranquility in our accelerated world. Their movements through water embody principles that meditation teachers have tried to express in words for millennia. The art of moving with the current rather than against it, the wisdom of yielding without surrendering, the strength that comes from flexibility rather than rigidity. When we watch a jellyfish pulse through its liquid medium, we are seeing the physical manifestation of concepts like Wu Wei, Taoist principle of effortless action, of accomplishing through non-struggle. In their patient floating existence, Cnidarians remind us that some of life's greatest victories come not from conquering our environment, but from learning to dance with it. They have survived mass extinctions not through superior weapons or defensive armor, but through a kind of liquid wisdom that allowed them to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing their essential nature. Their success lies in their acceptance of change as the only constant, their willingness to flow with forces larger than themselves. The immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, offers perhaps the most profound lesson of all. When faced with injury, starvation, or the apparent finality of old age, it simply transforms, returning to its youth to begin again. This is not the desperate clinging to life that characterizes so many species, but a graceful acceptance of cycles, life and death and rebirth as natural phases of species. Existence, no more alarming than the turning of seasons or the rising and setting of the sun. In laboratories around the world, scientists studying this remarkable creature are discovering that its secret lies not in avoiding cellular damage, but in embracing transformation. When stress threatens the integrity of its adult form, Turritopsis dohrnii doesn't fight the changes, it orchestrates them, guiding its own metamorphosis back to a simpler, more resilient state. It teaches us that renewal might come not from preserving what we are, but from remembering what we were, from returning to the essential self that lies beneath all our accumulated complexity. As we follow these gentle teachers into the realm of sleep and dreams, we can learn from their approach to existence. They move through their world without urgency, without the anxiety that drives so much of human behavior. They respond to their environment without being overwhelmed by it. They face challenges with flexibility rather than force, adaptation rather than resistance. In the warm shallows of tropical lagoons, sea anemones anchor themselves to coral heads and sway with the current, their tentacles moving in hypnotic patterns that mirror the rhythm of waves above. Each movement is both purposeful and peaceful, part of an ancient choreography that has played out for millions of years. They teach us about the art of being present in one place, of finding richness and beauty in stillness, of discovering that the greatest adventures might be internal ones. Portuguese man-o'-war colonies drift across vast oceanic distances, their translucent sails catching trade winds that have blown across these same waters since continents took their current form. They embody the possibility of long journeys undertaken without struggle, of covering enormous distances through patience and skillful use of natural forces. Their 40-meter colonies move as single organisms, thousands of individuals coordinating their actions with a harmony that human societies rarely achieve. In the deepest ocean trenches, where eternal night reigns and pressure would crush human bones, giant siphonophores create light displays more beautiful than any human art. Their bioluminescent patterns pulse through the darkness like living galaxies, reminding us that beauty can emerge in the most unlikely places, that creativity and wonder persist, even in environments that seem hostile to life itself. These deep-sea light shows occur without audience, without purpose, beyond their own expression. They are pure beauty for its own sake, art created by creatures that have no concept of art as we understand it. In their luminous displays, we glimpse something transcendent, the universe expressing its inherent creativity through living forms, consciousness, exploring itself through countless variations on the theme of existence. As you prepare to join these ancient mariners in their realm of dreams, allow their 540 million year meditation to guide your own descent into rest. Feel the rhythm of their pulsing bells slowing your heartbeat, synchronizing your breathing with their eternal dance. Picture yourself floating with them in warm, dark water, supported by currents older than memory, carried by forces larger than any individual concern. Let go of the urgency that drives so much of waking life. Release the need to control outcomes, to force solutions, to swim against currents too powerful to resist. Instead, embrace the Cnidarian wisdom of flowing with whatever comes, of finding grace in surrender, of discovering that the deepest strength often manifests as the gentlest yielding. In the depths of sleep, you join an ancient community of drifters and dreamers, creatures who have mastered the art of existence without struggle, of movement without friction, of being fully present in the eternal now, of deep ocean time. Their transparent bodies become your own, their liquid medium your resting place, their timeless rhythm the soundtrack of your journey into the vast, peaceful depths of the unconscious mind. Tomorrow will bring its own currents, its own challenges, its own opportunities for adaptation and growth. But tonight, you float in infinite calm with the masters of liquid meditation, the teachers of graceful persistence, the guardians of oceanic wisdom, who have turned the simple act of drifting into a 500 million year long prayer for the beauty and resilience of life itself. Let their ancient presence carry you now into dreams as vast and peaceful as the seas they call home, their gentle pulsing guiding you deeper into rest, their timeless dance of expansion and contraction, marking the rhythm of your own breathing as you sink into sleep as deep and restorative as the abyssal depths where they continue their eternal meditation, floating in infinite calm, waiting to welcome you home to the quiet depths of your own peaceful heart. In this floating sanctuary of the deep mind, surrounded by creatures who have mastered the art of being rather than doing, you discover that the greatest adventures are often the quietest ones, that the most profound journeys are those that lead not outward into the world, but inward into the vast, peaceful ocean of consciousness itself, where ancient wisdom flows like deep currents through the eternal night of restorative sleep.